Hello minasan, it's Hisako again. I hope you are having a wonderful day. Today's video I want to talk about cosplay versus henshin, which is something I actually talked about a little bit briefly in my previous video, but I want to kind of delve a little bit deeper into that. So what exactly is it with cosplay and henshin? A lot of people, I feel like, sometimes do get the two kind of, they use the terms interchangeably sometimes when it comes to what I do with Geisha Henshin, but henshin is not cosplay. It is a completely different thing from cosplay. That being said, a lot of people who get into henshin, especially Westerners who get into it, a lot of us did actually start out in the cosplay world. I did as well. I started doing cosplay when I was, oh gosh, I'm gonna make myself sound old. I'm 36 now, and I started doing cosplay I think when I was 24, 25, mid-20s. So I kind of got started in it a little bit later. I know a lot of people get started more in their late teens, early 20s, or even earlier. But yeah, I did that for several years, and I really enjoyed cosplay because I do enjoy dressing up and makeup and you know, just being in character. But after I got the chance to do a henshin experience in Kyoto, Japan, back in 2023, that kind of changed everything for me. And once I did the henshin experience, it was like, oh, I was all about henshin now. Like, by cosplay, we had moved on to somebody else. So that kind of became my new thing, and now I just focus pretty much solely on henshin full time. So it's a super, super fun thing. I love it. In a lot of ways, I like it more than cosplay, honestly, and I have my own feelings about that, and I'll get into that in just a second. But again, just to reiterate, cosplay and henshin are not really the same thing. Henshin is more focusing on dressing up to replicate traditional Japanese costume. So that would be things like geisha or maiko. It would be like oiran or taiyu, kabuki style actors, things like that, where you're doing a lot of like the shironuri makeup, kimono, katsura wigs, anything kind of in that category. Cosplay and henshin, it's different. So in a lot of ways, I feel like henshin is kind of harder, I think, and more challenging compared to cosplay in some ways. Depends. There are definitely some cosplays I think are a lot harder to do, but I think when you're starting out, henshin is definitely a little more challenging than cosplay would be initially. But yeah, it's not to say that, you know, sometimes when I go to conventions, people will say like, oh, I love your cosplay. I don't correct them because I don't want to come off as like I didn't understand their comment. You know, when people say something nice, you shouldn't be rude. But between you and me, henshin is not cosplay, so I won't correct people in public because I don't want to be rude. But at the same time, it is not a cosplay. Henshin is definitely different. When I first got started with henshin, coming from a cosplayer's viewpoint and standpoint, I was initially only going to do one look. I had collected all the parts with getting my wig. I had gotten a black kimono that my husband had gifted me, a kurotomesore as they call it, obi, some kanzashi to go with it. I started learning to do the makeup. It initially started out as a project where I was still doing cosplay, but I was going to do like one henshin look that I could do just to say I did it. But in the process of putting that look together, I started to realize about halfway through, this cannot be treated like cosplay. This is a completely different thing. The amount of research and attention to detail that went into it made me realize this is kind of its own separate thing. And I was having so much fun with it that it was like I didn't want to just have the one kimono, the one look, and that's all you ever do. So that's when I made the decision to leave cosplay and transition into henshin. So that's kind of how I got into that. But yeah, I learned very quickly that this was not the same thing as cosplay. This was definitely harder to do. I had to learn how to do obi, how to dress kimono and proper kitsuke techniques, learning how to do the makeup properly. So it was a whole song and dance. But it was so worth it. I loved the journey to get there, absolutely. There's also another thing I want to talk about a little bit, and like I said, I'm going to try to not make this video too long because I know sometimes I do that. I'm a very chatty person. When it came to the cosplay world and the henshin world, it's definitely a different vibe. It's not to say that either one is better, because it's going to depend on your experience and what you want to do. But I will say, compared to cosplay, I have found the henshin community to be very friendly, very welcoming, very knowledgeable on the topics. I'm always learning new things every day from either other henshin or other kimono enthusiasts or just anybody that's involved in sort of that world. It's weird because when you do henshin, if you run into another henshin, which is not very often, there's not a lot of us doing it, unfortunately, but when you do, it's almost like this instant friendship. It's hard to describe. Like, you're part of sort of like this little sisterhood network, I guess. Much like how it would be for real geisha in places like Kyoto and Tokyo and stuff. You are a geisha on the street, you walk by and you see another geisha, even if you don't know them, there's already some sort of camaraderie or like recognizing one another as geisha. So it's like you instantly feel sort of connected in a way. And I feel like with henshin, there's a lot of those similarities. You run into another henshin, it's like, oh my gosh, another one. Because we don't see a lot of us very often. So when you do, it's an exciting thing. But it's almost like an instant friendship. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's been a really rewarding experience and a really wonderful feeling. I always get excited meeting other henshin or anybody that does kimono or anything like that. Versus cosplay, I do feel like sometimes, and I want to be careful with how I say this, but I do feel like sometimes the cosplay community can be it's very competitive. I don't feel like you get quite that same competition in the henshin world. It's more just everybody supporting everybody and we all cheer each other on. But I do feel like in the cosplay world it can be very competitive. There tends to be a lot of drama. This is news to nobody, okay? Anybody who's part of the cosplay world, we all know there is drama. Sometimes that's part of the fun of it, I guess. But that's not really something in the henshin world. A lot of us are pretty reserved, so you probably won't see us get involved in a lot of things like that. But the cosplay community is also much larger and much more popular compared to henshin. But having done cosplay before, there were a lot of times I think I did feel like maybe somewhat lonely, and like I had a hard time connecting with people or making friendships in that community. It's not to say that you can't. I think it just depends on your personality and where you feel most comfortable. But while I still enjoy going to conventions to see my friends and have a chance to dress up in henshin and stuff, it's different as a henshin versus as a cosplayer. I actually enjoy going as henshin much more because it gives me a chance to not only hopefully connect with maybe other henshin I might run into, but also a chance to share more about what I do and just geisha culture in general, which is super exciting for me to share. And I love meeting other people that know stuff so that I learn new things all the time as well. So yeah, I enjoy henshin a lot more. But like I said, that's not to say I dislike the cosplay community, but it is a very different world, and having stepped into both worlds now, I would say I feel like I enjoy henshin more than I enjoy cosplay. But that being said, I still dabble in cosplay from time to time. I still love putting costumes together and working with wigs, and especially doing different kinds of makeup looks. So once in a while I still kind of get into it, but for the most part this is what I focus on now. So yeah, that's a little bit about the way I feel about cosplay versus henshin and some of those kinds of differences. But again, neither is wrong. You just got to do whatever you want to do, and whatever path you feel is best for you, take that path. So if you have any questions or anything, please let me know below and I will answer them. And if you like my content, please like and subscribe so you can see more henshin related content. Alright guys, we'll see you in the next video. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care. Arigatou gozaimasu.